Hey summoners, and welcome back to another episode of Pro Counters. As with every patch, the meta continues to develop and we are here to cover counterpicks across every single role, so stay tuned for that. If you're looking for ways to beat meta picks or even ban some champions that are some meta picks and that you really don't know how to play against, well then look no further, because we will be covering them in this video. Do me a favor though, and let me know your answer to this question down below. Today's question is what champions that you play against are forcing you to counterpick them instead of playing a champion that you would usually play. For me personally, I pick up a ranged champion anytime I play against Singed in the top lane, since I usually end up losing to him anytime I try to fight him, and if I play a melee champion, I'll probably just get grounded and flung. Anyway, let us know. Are you getting ganked in your own lane, constantly demolished? Well, don't worry, because we've got you covered. ProGuides is the #1 proven way to quickly level up your League of Legends skills. Whether you're looking for tier lists, champion guides, coaching, or courses from your favorite pro players, ProGuides is where you'll find them. Even players like Nightblue, Bunny Fufu, and Loco Doco support ProGuides, so what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description down below to start improving right now, and let's get into the video. Alright, starting off the rundown, let's start with Yorick in the top lane. We've seen a lot of Juggernauts and Bruisers up in the top lane nowadays, and Yorick and his goons make a great team as they're able to apply tons of side lane pressure and put them on a timer. You'll want to pick him into champions like Darius, Mordekaiser, Set, and Aatrox. Although he won't outright beat them from the get-go, as Yorick starts building more and more items, his side lane pressure as well as his ability to take turrets quickly increases. The reason that he's able to hold his own against these guys who are typically known as dominant oppressive picks is because Yorick is also able to sustain back a lot of the damage that he takes with his Q. Additionally, he will do fairly well in all-ins as he has his Mistwalker as well as his Maiden of the Mist. Don't underestimate him, those walkers are really strong and the damage that they deal really does add up over time. Once you finish your Trinity Force, he really comes online, and then especially after you get like a Sterix gauge, he can really do a lot of damage. His Q alongside Trinity Force's passive really allows him to quickly ravage those turrets and then erase them from Summoner's Rift. That split push potential is super good, especially in lower elo. When somebody is stronger than you, one of the best options in general is just to run away. Kinda like running away from your problems, you can pick Singed to run away from some other problematic top laners at the moment. His playstyle makes it super difficult for champions like Mordekaiser, Set, Fiora, Jax, and Riven to do anything in those long drawn-out trades as they desire to do. Ornn is one of the strongest top laners in the game, and he really struggles against Singed because of how hard Mega Adhesive really counters him. With it, Singed can actually throw the ground on Ornn, making it very difficult for him to escape or even use his ultimate. Yes, it really works like that. If you're playing Singed and you throw W on Ornn, he can't actually use the second part of his R since it is technically a dash, so it's a really big counterpick. We all know chasing Singed doesn't really end well, and in this current meta, he's usually able to abuse this pretty well. Pick Singed if you want to neutralize these sorts of meta picks, push in waves quickly, and then roam around the map. Singed Engage is actually pretty good when he gets that movement speed from his passive, and he's usually able to flank his opponents from Fog of War. In lower elos and disorganized play, Singed with his proxy farming shenanigans is usually pretty good, and that's why you see his win rate usually be near the top. That's going to be it for the top lane, so check out these builds one more time on screen as we move on to the jungle next. With some strong buffs this patch, it looks like Trundle is ready to hit the Rift once again. Although he's been underperforming, the buffs that he got this patch really should help him out quite a bit. While an increased slow and some bonus movement speed might seem insignificant, think about the kind of champion that Trundle really is. Everything revolves around whether or not he can reach you, so these buffs absolutely make or break him given the right circumstances. Trundle is the classic counterpick into tanks, so pick him into popular ones like Zac and Rammus. He also does very well versus Warwick and Lee Sin because of his incredible dueling as well as the fact that he steals AD with his Q. Warwick, who also auto-attacks a lot, and Lee Sin, who relies heavily on his AD ratios, really suffer against skirmishing Trundle. Next up in the jungle is Graves, who has surprisingly been a less dominant pick. However, after a couple of minor buffs, he's actually beginning to show that he is once again a force to be reckoned with. Against the likes of Lee Sin, J4, Nocturne, and Karthus, he has a pretty good win rate. This is likely due to in part how effective his smokescreen is against these champions. Funny enough, Lee Sin is already blind, so you really wouldn't think that smokescreen would do much versus him, but I guess League is just funny sometimes. Nevertheless, obstructing any of these champions' vision will really make their job a lot harder. Karthus, while using his passive after dying, can't see outside of Graves' smokescreen, making it so that he can practically be shooting his Qs with absolutely no information. Nocturne likewise can't use the second part of his ultimate until he breaks out, and since he's a melee champion who builds AD, Graves' True Grit is really annoying to deal with. And of course, in the case of Jarvan and Lee Sin, the True Grit is also a huge advantage, as well as having a range advantage makes it very easy for him to deal with them in close quarters combat. Jarvan's ultimate is also a free wall for Graves to bounce his Q off of. Overall, Graves' very fast clear and great scaling makes him a pretty powerful counterpick into these types of champions, as he can either match their scaling or carry teamfights harder than them into the late game. That's going to be it for jungle. Make sure to check out those builds one more time, and then let's move on to the mid lane next. We've mentioned him quite a few times already, but Renekton is still proving to be a prominent and powerful mid lane counterpick. He's especially good against some of the champions that players hate playing against the most. Yasuo, Katarina, Aurelia, and Sylas. Renekton's point-and-click stun, powerful all-in, and tankiness make it nearly impossible for these champions to really find their footing. Early game, Renekton does a stupid amount of damage, and going for short trades against him really isn't going to help either. Although Renekton's late game is significantly worse than these other champions, what he does well is that he doesn't really let his opponents have the opportunity to take off and reach those late game fantasies. Sure, I agree with you that Yasuo at 6 items is going to beat Renekton, but if Yasuo's 0-10, how long is that going to take to get there? Even after the laning phase, he continues to shut them out, and in teamfights, he can focus his attention onto his direct opponent. He can kill them and then proceed to continue dealing damage as the teamfights continue. The goal basically is to put these types of champions so far behind that they will never ever be useful. As a direct foil to Renekton, we have to shout out Vel'Koz as well. His insane range and damage really outputs a lot more powerful options than some other shorter range champions, like Syndra, Ahri, and Cassiopeia. A lot of the champions that Vel'Koz really beats heavily rely on getting in and dealing a lot of their damage up front. This is super difficult against Vel'Koz because of course, he can play super safe. Not only does he have insane range, but he also has great wave clear to back that up. Whether it's by constantly shoving in wave after wave, or trying to slowly whittle down his opponents, Vel'Koz can slowly start to take control of the wave. After landing some poke, Vel'Koz can also heavily pressure solo kills after level 6. The combination of a stun, passive, and constant DPS from ultimate really means that landing a full combo usually ends up in his opponents dying. Unfortunate. Alright, that's it for mid lane, so we're going to show you these builds one more time, and then we will move on to the bot lane. Moving on to the old bot lane, we have Senna. A recent build that's gained popularity is Senna taking Glacial Augment. The reason this is super good is that it allows her to protect herself later on, and also allows her to punish her opponents and assist her allies. The main reason the Keystone works so well is that her auto attack range is really long. The infinite scaling means that she can look to snipe out foes from a distance, and then, slow them. Really broken actually. During the laning phase, it's super strong because Senna can start off with an auto attack to slow her opponents, and then it's really easy for your support to land all their abilities, and then after they land all their CC, Senna can use her own W for even more lockdown. Regardless, Senna's huge range advantage really allows her to abuse other marksmen with lower range, like Kai'Sa, Lucian, and Aphelios, and she can slowly whittle them down and push them out of lane. Against Caitlyn, Senna's long range actually allows her to avoid a significant amount of poke, and she can then just heal it back with her own Q. Basically, Senna ADC with Glacial Augment has become everything that we hate playing against in the bot lane. In a similar sense, Cassiopeia is back with our next bot lane pick. She, like Senna, can take advantage of lower range enemies, but for a completely different reason. Cassiopeia's all-ins are lethal as she's able to spam her E and beat virtually anyone that stays in range. Against Caitlyn, who outranges her, a well-placed miasma can render Caitlyn unable to quickly escape, and she'll end up taking some damage no matter what. Misfortune is a pick that is known to dominate pretty much every matchup, but Cassiopeia's ability to run her down and then out-DPS her really does say otherwise. If your team needs more magic damage similar to how people do play Veigar bot lane, consider locking in Cassiopeia to round out your damage. Here were those builds for bot lane one more time, and lastly, let's move on to support. For support, the first build will be Bard. Now keep in mind the build that's being used and more popular lately. While the runes do seem pretty standard, look at those items, Dead Man's Plate as well as Rapid Fire Cannon. This is used to complement Bard's passive and his playstyle. The increased mobility really allows Bard to traverse all over the map faster and apply more pressure with his roams, and since Bard's passive already applies a slow, the fact that he can quickly reach his opponents with Deadmans and utilize the increased range of rapid fire cannon means that he's a long-range speed racing pick-making machine. He's also super tanky as a result of having Deadmans played alongside some standard support items, and your starting item with this build is pretty flexible. Make sure you take whatever fits your playstyle better. Because Bard is a range support and actually has a lot of damage during the early game laning phase, it makes him a pretty good pick into Thresh, Leona, Morgana, and Pyke. Ideally, he will go take his initial trades while his passive and Q are ready, and then back off once they're on cooldown. One more tip, especially against Morgana, he might be able to even stun through a black shield, as the damage portion of his Q will oftentimes even break the shield, and it allows the stun that follows through to still connect. Lastly, let's finish up with Taric. Taric is one of the few supports left that still takes Guardian instead of Aftershock, and this is part of the reason why he's actually pretty firm in the meta this season. Taric does super well into other melee supports, and his shield and healing make it so that he's able to hold his own against aggressive picks, and he's also able to keep his partner alive. Taric's passive is also super powerful and very underrated. It provides him with 2 empowered auto attacks after every spell cast. Sometimes I've even seen Taric jungle this season and they can literally 1v1 you. Pretty crazy. This makes it so champions like Leona and Nautilus, who are very popular at the moment, really have a hard time being aggressive against him. And then of course, as the game progresses, Taric's ultimate makes him one of the best late game supports, as the utility it provides goes completely unmatched by other supportive champions. Although it's a very high cooldown, we all know that it really only takes one fight for everything to end. And one more time, here were those support picks on screen. Anyway, that's gonna wrap it up for Pro Counters for patch 10.2. Let us know what you thought of this video. Also consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and checking out our website if you found this video useful. We have tons of guides over there that will help you get better at League of Legends every single day, and we're always committed to making sure that you can climb as high as you can. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you all on the Rift.